Let's get into the Rotoworld headlines. We have a lot to get through today, Barry, and it starts with Alvin Kamara. Officially, he will be suspended per Adam Schefter. He'll be suspended 3 games for his role in a fight outside a Las Vegas nightclub in 2022. Jeremy Fowler reports that free agent Kareem Hunt is expected to meet with the Saints now. So Kamara, honestly, this isn't not only not a surprise, but a number of games that I think isn't overwhelming for Kamara with only 3.
No, I mean, what we said on Friday's show, we did that in the morning, so before the news broke, but we said, like, we think it'll be a couple of games. 3
couple games.
Is a couple of games, right? And so, you know, and they've had, you know, a couple of depth issues there in the Saints backfield as well. Yeah, so they're kicking the tires on Kareem Hunt. Let's start there. Let's start with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt wasn't good
Not at all.
last year. Kareem Hunt is a big name. By the way, a former fantasy ride or die. Kareem Hunt's rookie year, one of my best calls. But last year, you know, averaging under 4 yards per carry and yards per touch, career lows in both last season. Career low in receiving yards per game. Like, all his underlying metrics were bad. And then you look at just sort of like the game film and the numbers are like he couldn't get on the field. Like, they didn't use him very much. Like, usually he used to be good for, like, you know, Chubb will get 18 to 20 touches a game, and, you know, Hunt will get like 8 to 12, and it was more like 3 or 4. Like, Kareem Hunt might be done. I don't know what happened to him last year in Cleveland, but he hasn't gotten nearly, it feels like, the amount of attention or camp visits that Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette or Ezekiel Elliott, the other big-name running backs that are out there. So we'll see what happens here. This feels more about depth. They are going to be without Kamara for 3 games. But, I've Kareem Hunt ranked as running back 60. So, you know what I mean? Like, he's going as running back 58, by the way, on over there in Yahoo. So I want to talk about Kamara, though, now. And it's sort of like, I'm out on Kamara this year. Now, I'm at running back 32. His ADP is running back 26, so I'm lower to the consensus on him. I don't hate that. If you want to take him as your running back 3 as a mid-tier running back, you know, in that running back 25 to 30 range, fine. But, you know, what you're hoping for is that we see the guy, not from last year, but from like a couple of years ago. We've talked about this, but last year, on a points per game basis, from week 9 on, he was running back 36. In the last 2 seasons, he's had 6 rushing touchdowns on 463 carries. And those 6 touchdowns came in 2 games. Like, they used Taysom Hill in a bunch of ways. Now they've got Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams, who was a touchdown machine last year. I just don't know that you can feel great about the scoring equity of Alvin Kamara this year. He missed 6 games over the past 2 seasons. Like, he has been injury prone. It's a new offense when you think about the fact that Derek Carr is there. Maybe Derek Carr dumps off a little bit more, but I don't know. Like, to me, Derek Carr has got a big arm, likes to throw it deep. And, oh, by the way, there's Chris Olave. You know, and they added Jimmy Graham as a red zone threat, whatever.
They have a million tight ends.
Juwan Johnson, right, is there. Week 8 of last year, he had a 42-point game. Great. Awesome, amazing. He had 1 huge game. But you take that game out, and he averaged 12.1 fantasy points per game last year, which would have been running back 24. So you're looking at a guy who last year was more or less running back 24. He was a flex play. He was a flex play most weeks. And, oh, by the way, we know he's definitely missing 3 games, and he might miss more because he's missed 6 over the last 2 games. He's been injury prone. Alvin Kamara, for me, this year is a guy you wind up with, not a guy you target. You find yourself in the middle of your draft, and you're like, you need a running back, and you're good everywhere else, and you're just sort of like, okay, fine. Maybe he regains the magic. You know what I mean? But, like, he's not anyone I'm targeting, and there are players in his range that I like better, that I think have more upside than Alvin Kamara. I think he's a bigger name than production at this point of his career. I'll just tell you, I think Jamal Williams is a really good running back. Obviously, he got a bunch of bunny touchdowns last year. But here's my last thing, too, Connor, and you can speak to this. I think Kendre Miller's really good.
That's the big elephant in the room, right? The Saints kind of showing their hand that they're getting ready to move on. There's a 3rd-round pick on Kenyan Miller. It's like he was a 5th or 6th or 7th round flyer, UDFA, a 3rd round pick after signing Jamal Williams. And now they're bringing in Kareem Hunt for a visit. The Saints are just showing their hand over and over again that the Kamara days, the heyday of Kamara, is starting to look like it's in the rearview mirror.
And what are the like again, Connor? You do such great work with the draft work, for so many years at Bleacher Report. Now with us at NBC Sports, what are the Saints getting in Kenyan Miller?
A guy that could be a workhorse in between the tackles. He's got enough juice to get outside. They know Jamal Williams can do that for them in the red zone, and they know Jamal Williams is great in pass protection. So I think Kenyan Miller can steal those 1st and 2nd down kind of carries, while Jamal Williams can be a 3rd down back because of his blocking, a goal line back because of how good he is in the red zone. And when you factor that in, you start to wonder how much workload is there for Kamara. Of course, Kamara's not completely taken out of the offense, but is he 1/3 of the running back committee?
Right. And again, we could see Kenyan Miller once he gets in there and he learns on the pass pro and everything like that, like second half of the season. Here's the other thing that I think is interesting. So I interviewed Kenyan Miller at the NFLPA Rookie Premiere. And, I interviewed 40 players in one day. And they give you these like little facts, these little, factoids, things to talk to the players about. And one of the things it says on my sheet, right, is like Kenyan Miller's favorite player growing up was Jerry Rice. So that's like literally one of the first things I ask him, like, wait, you're a running back, dude. Why is Jerry Rice, who, by the way, his heyday was before, when you were a kid, Jerry Rice was already retired, right? I mean, Kenyan Miller's like 22 years old or whatever it is. I'm like, Jerry Rice. And he goes, growing up, I always wanted to be a receiver.
Of course.
And Jerry Rice is the greatest receiver of all time. So he's like, I will watch clips on YouTube and whatever. And so, like, I don't think people appreciate, and we talked about this. He's just like, I can catch the ball. I take great pride in my hands and my skills. He's like, I did a drill where I was catching tennis balls in Saints camp, and they were blown away. He's like, they just, at TCU, they just never needed him to be in the passing game. But he's like, I can catch the ball. I grew up wanting to be a wide receiver. I thought I was going to be a wide receiver, And so I just think that's a very underrated, underreported aspect of Kenyan Miller's game.
Yeah, they could tap into that ceiling. We have this conversation with running backs every year. It was Kenneth Walker at Michigan State. Everyone was like, he didn't catch any passes. It's not that he can't catch the ball. It's that he wasn't used that way in college. In TCU, the way their offense was constructed, Kenyan Miller was a workhorse runner. He didn't need to be this dynamic receiving threat.
Because they went, passing-wise, they were very vertical.
Yes, they had Quentin Johnson. Max Dugan, their quarterback, can run as well. Right. So he ate into a lot of some of the workload there. So Kenyan Miller, super high ceiling, and I think the Saints are eager to find out what he looks like as soon as they can. And that goes back to Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
Who, as you said.
Again, I'm lower on him. I'm at running back 32, lower than consensus. I probably won't have very many, if any, shares of Alvin Kamara this year.
More running back news. Our very own Mike Florio reports the Chiefs and the Broncos are among the teams interested in Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, who obviously has not been practicing at camp yet. He's not interested in playing on the franchise tag, as we've seen. But 2 teams in their division very interested. I don't know if it's poking the bear or it's just very interesting that Jacobs would be on their radar.
It's a weird one. This is a weird one. Now, listen, I will tell you this. I know Mike Florio pretty well. He legit has sources. Like I sit next to him, in the football night meetings and everything like that. His phone is constantly going off. But this one's a weird one to me. A, because I don't think there's any chance the Raiders, if they do trade him, would trade him within the division.
It'd be insane.
And especially to the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. The other thing is that it doesn't feel like a need for either of those teams. Like if you told me the Colts were interested in Josh Jacobs, okay, like my problem for yours, like that sort of makes sense, right? But it feels like for the Chiefs, who got such great production from Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, they still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the roster as well. It just feels like, because Jacobs is really good, but like, I don't know, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl with the group that they had, and then you think over to Denver, and I guess again, unless the camp reports about Javonte Williams being, but they signed Samaje Perine to a real contract as well. They have some other guys there too. It doesn't feel like it's those 2 teams are like, if I said to you, hey, there's 2 teams in the NFL that really are interested in Josh Jacobs, those are not the first 2 that come to mind.
I think
that need a running back.
Yeah, what jumps out to me is that teams are now in the sniffing around phase of Josh Jacobs, because it's a wonder of, obviously the Raiders is a great fantasy spot for him to play, but if that relationship officially comes to an end at some point, it's a matter of what are the landing spots that make Josh Jacobs as good as last year where he led the league in rushing is unfair, but the same caliber of player in fantasy, I think, is what would be interesting in a trade.
9 different games with at least 19 fantasy points last year. No running back in the NFL had more games of 19 or more fantasy points as well. 6 different games with 150 total yards, twice as many as any other running back. Stat after stat after stat. Pick a stat. Josh Jacobs is awesome last year. I'm at running back 9, which is about where he's going as well in terms of ADP, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous. Like, again, we've talked about this on this show. Like, if there's a guy that you were like, who had the wherewithal, the internal fortitude.
Nice pivot.
The internal fortitude to not report, to say, like, I'll take the fine. I'll forego money. I'm making a point about not only my pay, but the pay for other running backs. I think it's Josh Jacobs. Like, again, as he has faced tougher adversity in his life than this. And so we'll see. You have to hope they come to their senses and that there's some sort of like Austin Eckler / Saquon Barkley type deal where they give him a little bit more money for the 1 year, let him save face. Okay, he's there, he's back, and at the end of the year, either they separate or they work out a long-term solution.
I think he's a guy that, unlike Saquon Barkley, needs to negotiate that, hey, I'll play here this year on the tag. Maybe I get another $1 million in incentives, but I'm only signing this if you write in that you can't tag me again next year. I was surprised Barkley didn't get that written in his deal, and maybe that's what Jacobs, that's the compromise, that he can't be tagged twice.
But I wonder, though, I think it's 2 things. Again, you sort of know what each leverage. But I will just say that I think if you are Saquon Barkley, who is a very famous player, highly marketable, on a playoff team with a great coach and living in, the biggest media market in the world, right? I mean, like, if you're Saquon, there's a lot of value beyond just the actual money of being the star running back of the New York Giants, especially this year. Again, playoff team, and if you're a star in New York, like, you can make a lot of money doing a lot of other things. Whereas being the star running back of the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that we expect to struggle this year, that's actually going to be in contention for the number 1 pick, unless things get crazy. There's a different set of considerations for Josh Jacobs than I think there are there for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As the Jonathan Taylor situation continues on in Indianapolis, the Colts signed Kenyan Drake. Obviously, Drake last played with the Ravens. I feel like we always end up somehow back in the Kenyan Drake conversation.
Yeah, are you shocked, by the way, that Kenyan Drake found a gig before Dalvin Cook or Ezekiel
Elliott? Didn't have that
Elliott?
on the bingo card.
Right, Leonard Fournette.
Right.
And I tweeted that out, and people were like, yeah, well, he's playing for the minimum. And those guys want a lot of money. I said, I get it, but yeah, Kenyan Drake's been playing for the minimum for a couple years now.
It's not news. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm still saying, I don't care. Kenyan Drake at the minimum versus Dalvin Cook at whatever he's demanding. I still think Dalvin Cook would have gotten a gig before Kenyan Drake, but that's the world we live in. I don't think there's any fantasy relevance here. If Taylor holds out, if something happens, then yes, sure. But this to me felt like they also lost Zach Moss. Zach Moss got injured. He's going to be out a significant amount of time. So I think this was more about depth in the running back room and more about the Zach Moss injury than I think it was any kind of shot across the bow to Jonathan Taylor. Like, if I'm Jonathan Taylor, I'm like,
not sweating this
yeah,
one.
You're totally. I'm like,
I got to come
good.
back. Kenyan Drake's here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no. Oh, what am I going to do? Kenyan Drake. All due respect to Kenyan Drake, he's not the same kind of player as Jonathan Taylor. He's fine. But, again, I'd rather draft Deion Jackson than Kenyan Drake at this point. I like Deion Jackson, by the way. He played well last year when he got a shot.
Fill-in.
Yeah, and then they ended up doing the Hines Zach Moss deal mid-season. But I thought Deion Jackson, when he got a shot on a bad team in Indianapolis, actually played well. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis
from NBC Sports Edge.